going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tapped In Indy podcast. And man, I've been teasing this one for a while. I'm excited. I hope everybody else is excited for one, as I am joined this week by a true legend. Let's sing the praises. A legend in his own mind, Sal Rinauro. What's going on, buddy?
Well, Nick, I can honestly say I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself. I am quite excited. This has been something we've been working on, getting together, doing something for seemingly forever now. I'm glad we finally get to sit down and do it.
Yeah, we've only been talking about this for like 2 years, maybe, give or take.
Yes.
Actually, probably longer than that. Because let me ask you a question. We really kind of, the fantasy league probably was the initial thing where we kind of like started talking like on a regular. And I was joking like, hey, before we get into all the plugs, we get in all the questions, we get on all the topics. I kind of had a running joke with you about, hey, can we even do a podcast and not talk about football? Because when I talk to people about Sal Rinauro, they'll ask me questions about like wrestling stuff, and I'll go, man, I don't know. I think like 80% of our conversations are like sports. So
yeah, this guy sure does love the Raiders.
And look, between the fantasy football and we talk, basketball a little bit here and there, but it's primarily it's football. So before we dive into, like I said, all the plugs and everything, this is very topical. And so if you're not a sports fan, you probably want to hit the skip button on the podcast thing for probably about 5 minutes because
I'll tie it in. I'll get a Lawrence Taylor WrestleMania 11 reference in or something. We'll be fine.
I wanted to ask you, as you're a Raiders fan and you're a glutton for punishment. My wife is a Cowboy fan, so she's even worse at times. I feel like
God bless. She's currently going through what I went through a few years ago. Micah Parsons. I had to deal with Khalil Mack wanting out. Ironically, I don't even know if we've discussed this. When Khalil Mack wanted out, I did not want Khalil Mack out of Oakland at the time. When he got traded to the Bears, Seth Rollins, who's a good buddy of mine, is a big Bears fan. So I'll never. It was a Saturday morning. I woke up and I get the news. My phone starts going off. Do you see this? Mack to the Bears. Mack to the Bears. And I politely rolled over and texted my good friend Seth Rollins, "I'll hate you forever."
And that one's we would argue, I guess, at this point, that's probably, if he's traded, Micah Parsons.
Hypothetically.
That's kind of the hypothetically, that's probably the closest analogy we're going to get. Like, it's probably the last one. One, could they actually trade the guy? And two, if they do, like, what are you getting for that guy?
Well, like, it's so crazy that they let it get this far, right? Like, just last year you did it with Dak. So, like, the precedent has been set. Like, hey, just sign your guys. Just take care of it, Jerry. It's wild that, like, Jerry Jones has publicly, like, what a Vince McMahon move. Just, like, bucking the system.
Did you see that today? I was listening today. I was going to ask you. Like, a lot of people are like, it almost sounds a little more personal, like he doesn't like him.
Yes. And there's been pot shots, like, since the spring. But, where, like, he doesn't know his agent's name. I'm like, it'll be fine. We'll work it out.
Yeah.
But bringing up, like, oh, no, we didn't even have him for 6 games last year, so what's it matter? Well, like, he's the best defensive player in the league. And your defense isn't that good. Maybe that's what it matters, Jerry. Maybe
it matters a ton. That's the problem. But, I mean... And the story of him, like, kind of honestly the easiest of the Dak, the CD, Micah should have been the easiest one. You just, the numbers there, you sign it, and it's over.
Layup, right? I mean, especially like, before, in my brain, it was, if I'm a GM, which clearly I'm not, but if I was an NFL GM going into this offseason for either the Steelers or the Cowboys, I'm in a mad dash to get TJ Watt signed before Micah or Micah signed before TJ, because that number is just going to move. You
Yeah.
know, whatever TJ gets, Micah's going to want more. Whatever Micah gets, TJ's going to want more. So I'm in a mad dash to get mine signed first.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that
It's the same
Jerry.
problem they did with Dak.
Yes.
You waited, and you waited, and it's like, what did it cost you when you should have just pulled the trigger probably 2 seasons before that,
Which
and you
is,
saved a ton of money?
it was saved a ton of money. And now Dak's making an extraordinary amount of money for a playoff win, a singular victory in the play. Like,
And but that's what a franchise quarterback gets. That's what they get. And I'm like, well, first of all, is he a franchise quarterback? That's what I wanted to say. But speaking of franchise guy, the question going into the draft this year, Shedeur Sanders, and now here we are. There's talk he may not even be on the team come week 1 that drafted him.
Well, I just saw that they released the depth chart. The Browns released their depth chart, and he was QB4. But they also released the stats for whatever they're doing, and he had more touchdowns than everybody and 0 interceptions. So I'm almost wondering if that was a leak to, like, hey, look, he's really good. Somebody wants him, come get him. Wild move, man. Now he might not even be. I mean, and it's a 5th round pick, right? Like, what a story that was. If you're a fan and being worked, the NFL draft this year was the greatest work I've ever seen. Because the kid was. How early is he going? And they drug it into the 3rd day, and I was the mark that was right there with my remote. Like, let's see.
They gave you more false finishes than Cena and Cody, right?
Wild, right? I mean, there were so many times. Like, I have another buddy who's a Raiders fan, and we were back and forth. Like, we're not getting him in the 1st round. We don't need him in the 1st round. But if he's there in the 2nd round, we could use the QB. And this is before we made the move for Geno or whatever. Well, maybe. Well, he's still there in the 3rd round. Do we pull the trigger? Well, he's there in the 4th round. What are we doing? For him to fall as far as he did, it was such, like, that's the 30 for 30 I'm looking forward to in 3 or 4 years. It's just wild, and you got to imagine that there was cameras all over that thing. That's the NFL Unreal.
I was about to say it's NFL Unreal, exactly.
Yeah.
Before we move on, though, did you know there's 3 teams that are actually the heavy favorites that I'm hearing? Whether that's
I have not heard that. Please share.
You should not be shocked by any of them. The Colts.
Yep.
Because they're a dumpster fire at quarterback.
So I have the McAfee show as background noise every day, and for the past month, Pat McAfee's been putting over Aaron Rodgers, Anthony Richardson, and he looks good. He's leaned up. He's got that cannon of an arm, and he's starting to sell me as a solid QB2 on my fantasy team.
No,
which is not a good idea. But I digress. It depends where we fall in the draft. But I could see him sliding. I mean, Daniel Jones. Come on, guys.
Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, like.
I just saw today where they're starting the preseason as co-QB1. Like, if that's not a 2025 thing, I'm
yeah.
What are we doing?
Just give the kid a participation trophy. He's like, yeah, exactly. 2 was the Saints.
That Derek Carr. So, Raiders fan, we've discussed this. Letting Derek Carr walk will forever be just a thorn in my side. He was a Raider at heart. Yeah. I'll never forget Josh McDaniels for it. If I could win Hater of the Year, it would be because my feelings towards Josh McDaniels. I don't wish ill upon many people. I want nothing but the worst to happen to Josh. Like, not like where he's like agonizing in pain, but like just a lot of bad things happening to him that are incontrollable, but like not life altering. Like, I hope his transmission goes out. I hope, I hope right in the middle of the summer his AC goes out. Stuff
He
like
gets a
that.
bad case of the gout. He gets the gout real bad.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I hope he gets something stuck in his tooth and like he tries to get it out with a toothpick and it breaks in his gum. Like that's the kind of stuff I wish on Josh McDaniel. But yeah, I mean DC retiring right before wow. The Saints. That's a very interesting team for Shedeur.
And last but not least, I couldn't believe this when this one even came up. The Rams. To sit behind Stafford for a year, maybe two, depending on how long he thinks he's got. And then Sean McVay's got the year or two to build Sanders to be his next guy.
That would be, talk about a quarterback whisperer there, right? McVay's the guy that got Baker Mayfield in on 2 days' notice. And on my son's birthday, we're celebrating the life of my child. And Baker Mayfield shows up on 2 days' notice and defeats the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, a year under that guy. You can say what you want. Shedeur's an athlete.
Right.
I mean,
and look, clearly with the stats they're throwing out there, he's accurate enough. I mean, he's not, got to do this and that. And if McVay puts him in the right system, if he doesn't, the only thing is don't take the sacks, don't throw picks, and you'll do okay.
And that's the thing is, and I think that's all in one, right? Because he's one of those guys that when the pocket collapses is when he starts getting antsy, and that's when he makes wild throws and starts running backwards and eating those big hits. A year under his belt with McVay, I mean, we could be talking about a completely different athlete, especially with the weapons they got there. If they can hold on to Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and let Shedeur play with them, geez Louise.
And just say, hey, we'll send you a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick like you picked him. He's – you know what I mean? Like, it's just a flyer. I mean.
And in LA, come on.
You think that's a city Dion wouldn't mind seeing him in?
I'm pretty sure Dion has that on his approved team.
Yeah, better than Cleveland. No offense to Cleveland, but anyway.
Oh no, full offense to Cleveland.
Well, look,
I'll
man,
be the heel.
That's enough football talk. And look, I have talked to a couple guys, yourself included. Maybe, just maybe. During this season over on our Patreon channel, patreon.com/tappedoutpod, we will actually kind of maybe get a little football thing going in here. It's a little bonus content. But, of course, as you always know, you get the show early at that $5 level. Hey, even at $1 level, we'll give you the show notes because, the show notes, there's a lot of stuff we don't get into on these shows, and you're probably guessing as I'm sitting here looking at our 3 long pages of notes that we're probably not going to get to half of this. That's the value there. But, of course, at the $10 level, you get the digital collectible, and at the $25 level, you get the 8.5 by 11 actual physical copy of that exclusive Patreon that we only send out and mail those out to those at $25 levels or higher. That's where the real value is, in my opinion. But, hey, I'm partial, Sal. It is what it is. I wanted to ask you, because this past week, a little bit where you, before we get into the topics, Southern Fried this past week, you're kind of all over. You got you're in the team with Sunny Days and you're with Marv at some place. It's just, you're kind of all over this place in Georgia. If for those the uninitiated as far as the Georgia wrestling, just a little bit about Sal and kind of how, where this all came about.
Well, the Sunny thing, was a fluke. It's funny. My relationship with Sonny, when Southern Honor first started, they were getting monthly promos from me, and no response. I could not crack the code on getting booked for Southern Honor. So they did a Battle Bowl at Southern Fried, and the thought was, hey, let's put Crazy Sal with Sunny Days and see if there's anything there. And we did one match together. And Sunny was like, hey, you available on a couple Fridays? And I was like, oh, my God, it worked. And, I mean, it's just been one of those. it was it was a fluke throwaway, like let's try something. And now like Sonny will tell you, like, I probably added 5 more years to his career. Good or bad, I've done it. And so, I mean, that's just, like that. It's crazy because like he's really good about remembering like dates and stuff. So like it was not too long ago. He texted me. It was like, hey, our 4-year anniversary is coming up, and I was like, we're married at this point. Like, God, like
you're common law married.
no, I did not realize this was our 4-year anniversary. I thought it was like 20 days ago. What I'm trying to say is CTE is a real thing, guys. But and then Marv, I've known Marv forever. I mean, Marv's one of those guys that I don't think he'll ever get the credit he deserves. Probably because he'll give it to himself before anybody else will. But that's just Marv. You either love him or you hate him, and there's no in between on him. But when we started doing this thing in Southern Fried, where right before I broke my face in October, it had been thrown out to me like, hey, what if you and Sonny turn heel? And I kind of pondered it because I really like selling T-shirts. But I said, you know what? Artistically, like, yeah, let's go. Let's see what we got here. And then I broke my face, and that kind of got put on the back burner. And as it did, I've been trying to find a way to get Marv back at Southern Fried anyways, just because he comes from the same area as me, so it gives me somebody to ride with. And we can talk about, Ahmed Johnson and, how impressive Tatanka's winning streak was, and, how they missed the boat on Pretty Wonderful as a tag team. Just all the stupidity that we could come up with. And so I kind of laid out this idea, like, hey, what if instead of just turning me and Sonny, like, what if Marv's kind of the catalyst? And so now it's basically me and two of my best friends being assholes. I can't like it's the best thing I can do. It's my favorite. I'm at this point they don't have to pay me to do it. I appreciate that they do, but I'm stealing money. It's okay.
And look, because you are the Southern Fried champion,
Yes.
a singles champion, but you're kind of in the group, obviously. But you and Sonny have been tag champions. I mean, you multiple. I asked, last week I had, another guest on, and he's kind of in a faction as well. And the question came up, so I asked you. I'm going to slide this question in here real quick. Do you like the tag team thing more? Is it just more fun for you?
I love tag team. I love tag team wrestling. There's such an art to it, and it's funny to me. Just to see where tag team wrestling, how it's evolved. Where I'm very much a stickler for tag rules, and I abide by them, whether it fits the motif or not. Fits the area. But I'm pretty adamant. If you ever watch any of my tag matches, the way they're laid out, it's 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Use the tag ropes; they're available. Like especially like when I was a babyface with Sonny at Southern Fried, I would always do something before the match to make sure everybody saw that we had a tag rope, even if I unraveled it and walked down the apron with it, just being stupid. It's just to plant the seed that, like, no, these tag ropes have a meaning. They're real, because the referee would have to be like, no, put it back. There's just, it's in my world, and I kind of stole this philosophy from Xavier Woods, because him and I were breaking down tag wrestling a few years ago, that tag wrestling is just a gimmick match. It's just like a cage match. It's just like an Inferno match. There's a gimmick to the tag match, and finding new and different ways to make the gimmick work, that's the stuff that I love. I love getting to take the ball of clay and creating my own character with it, my own artwork with it. And tag team wrestling just opens up so many different ways to do that because you're allotted more people. There's more toys to play with. There's more colors to there's more crayons to color with. So yeah, like plus I can bump less, and that's super cool because it hurts. But yeah, I mean, like there's tag team wrestling is such a good art form, and when it works, it's untouchable. It's untouchable when you got.
Let me ask you that, because I am too. But listen, it's probably the era we grew up in. We're similar ages. I'm a little bit older, but we grew up in that Demolition. The Road Warriors. You could just go on and on and on. The tag team specifically, if you were a WWF fan at the time, and even in the we had the Rock and Roll Express, we had the Midnight Express, or whatever. On and on. Yeah, the Midnight. That's what I'm saying. So the Fantastics. I mean, blah blah blah, on and on and on. But do you think? Like, because I know we heard forever that up north they kind of just shoved, and well, it was kind of obvious if you watch TV, they kind of just shoved it to the side. So I guess now we've kind of seen it kind of a little bit coming back, but now let's drop all the way down to the Georgia level and ask you that question. Like, I've noticed a couple years ago, it was really hot. There were a lot of teams. I feel like, and I made a case at the beginning of the year, and I got some pushback, but then when I said, tell me why I'm wrong, I felt like Georgia kind of had dipped again. Like the teams started breaking up and guys were drifting off. Do you find like now that, because you work, here's one of the reasons I was eager to have you on, by the way, you pretty much wrestle everywhere in Georgia. There's not a place that you can kind of go like, no, not really. I mean, you haven't worked at every promotion, but you would have. And it's like, hey, by the way, folks, Sal's an email away from wrestling at your favorite promotion.
100%.
So, but do you think Georgia gives tag team enough across the board, across the state?
No, I don't. And I think it's funny. I mean, it's kind of to tie back into the NFL thing, right? They say the NFL's a copycat league where, I mean, just look at like the Wildcat, right? The Dolphins started doing the Wildcat, and it worked, and so everybody kind of started a Wildcat offense. And like the tush push, the Eagles have clearly made it work, and now other teams are starting to do tush pushes. Wrestling's a lot in the same vein where, WWE for a long time was like tag team wrestling isn't it, and so tag team wrestling wasn't it anywhere, right? Just like women's wrestling wasn't it, and then WWE TV starts pushing women's wrestling hard. And again, you can say what you want, but TNA had the Knockouts division forever, and it was awesome, and it was their best rated segments, but you didn't see it on an indie level. You would see it here and there and pop up every once in a while, but especially in Georgia, there was still no women's wrestler. And then WWE started the women's revolution, and all of a sudden there's an outpouring of women here in Georgia, which I'm not complaining about. I'm just saying it's very copycat. When WWE just starts to not push tag teams, which is kind of their MO, which is fine. It's a trickle-down effect where, tag teams aren't over up north, tag teams aren't going to be here, which is a philosophy that blows me away because I get it in one sense. You want to ride the biggest wave, right. But I've said this till I'm blue in the face to every promoter in Georgia at least once, and other promoters on a bigger scale. WWE's WWE. They're McDonald's, they're Coke, they're Band-Aid. Don't be them. If they're not pushing tag teams, here's your chance to push tag teams, to be different. So on Monday night, you can watch WWE and enjoy it. And even on Wednesday night, you can watch AEW and enjoy it. But maybe they're not pushing tag teams. You can go to the local armory on Friday night or on Saturday night, and you can see tag team wrestling and oh, wow, that's a great art form, right? Ring of Honor was really good about that, where Gabe was pretty tapped in, and there was a lot of tag teams that he let come in and out. But just to circle back to Georgia, I can say wholeheartedly. Yeah. There's been times I've talked to Sonny, and at times I've talked to Marv independently about tag teams. Like, well, we don't. Who can we throw together to team, because there's not a lot of guys out. Like there's not the Washington Bullets out there. There's not the Lynch Mob out there. There's not the what was it, the Young Lions? I think the Young Lions was their name.
Well, I mean, even things like exotic youth have kind of split off into doing the
Yeah,
same individuals, and if you get lucky, Carly and Sean Dean come through town and you can get a match, or whatever. But it's
yes,
not, and that's what I was. But I was kind of pointing out to people, like you brought up, the Lynch Mob, and you brought up all these other teams that were there. The
yes,
Bullets, probably. By the way, I'm like you. I'm a huge Washington Bullets mark. I'm like
yes.
totally like, hey, they were completely underrated. I don't think they got the credit they deserve. And even to this day, when I see them on a poster, I'm like, I'm in. Like,
Let's
get me there,
go.
because you don't see them
Yes,
often. Yeah. But I just felt like there was this long run there for a couple years. There were just teams. They were just like, you know, coming and coming and coming, coming. And then all of a sudden, it's the question I guess I'll ask you, is it because now you've been around and you've been in positions to where you're teaching and coaching and all that kind of stuff. Is it because, and I asked somebody last week this question, is it just because everybody wants to be the guy? Like they don't want to be the team. They want to be like, I want the spotlight. I don't want to share it with somebody else.
I definitely think that's part of it. I mean, as a pro wrestler, and I can speak, as from experience, you do want to be the guy, right? Like part of you wants to be the guy, but like I just I think part of it too is there's not a lot of people that are coached to understand like we can build to a greater good as a tag team, like you just don't see. And maybe it's a disconnect between talent and bookers too, where like how often do you see tag team wrestling main eventing shows anywhere, right? So like as an independent wrestler, if you're looking at a card and you want to be the main event, everybody wants to be the main event. You look at the main event and there's never tag matches. Oh, I don't want to be a tag wrestler. I want to be in the main event, right? And so it's a give and pull on both ends. Uh, I also think that if you get the right tag team and if you stick with it, um, you can easily insert yourself into any main event. At one point, this was right before I broke my arm. So I broke my arm in January of 2020. So at the end of 2019, actually, Marv and I had started. I said, screw it, let's team. I'm not taking any bookings anywhere without you. We're going to be a team. Uh, and we literally did 5 shows together and I broke my arm. That's on me. I didn't plan on doing it, promise. I broke my arm and COVID hit, things happened. Uh, but that you do have to take a step back and rewire your mentality as a pro wrestler because it is now more than just, okay, I'm booked. What am I doing? How am I doing it? When am I doing it? How can I keep getting booked? And I also get it from a promoter standpoint too, where it's a lot easier to do 2 singles wrestlers than 4 tag wrestlers.
The budget,
So
the old budget
yeah,
gets it.
it's a
Yeah.
budgetary thing too. Which when part of the thing I told Marv when we started teaming was, I'll come off my price because I want this to work. And I get guys now. Like that was me making a sacrifice because I believed in something. And not because I was dependent on those paydays. And so I get guys that if you're dependent on these paydays, and now you have to see if this guy's got heat with the booker, and if he does, then he's not going to book him, so you can't get booked. So now you're missing out on dates and you're missing out on money. I understand it, but there's got to be a medium somewhere where all these stars can align and tag team wrestling can be main events without hesitation. And like even with Sonny and I, we main evented a few Southern Pride shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it works because I've experienced it firsthand.
And I think, like you said, it's just the commitment from from the promotion, getting behind it, and we've again, maybe it's us, our age, that we saw it like back in the
Yes.
day. Like it's
Yes.
like, hey, scaffold matches, and it was like I said, the Midnights and the Road Warriors and the Koloffs and Dusty and the Key, etc. Whatever.
Well, and even like if you even when you go to like the golden era, late '80s, early '90s WWE stuff, I went to a bunch of the house shows at the LA Sports Arena, and Hogan was the name on the card. Hogan versus Big Boss Man, but they were before intermission, so they would do that match. They would throw it to intermission. They would tell you the rematch is going to be 3 months from now at the LA Sports Arena. Your tickets go on sale right now. But the main event of the night was the Rockers and Power and Glory.
Yeah.
And so like, it's not just something that like, oh, crazy Sal's and trying to change, reinvent the wheel. Like, no, I've been to WWE shows, in the '80s when Hogan was hot, and you got Savage and Piper and Rude and Warrior, and the last match of the night is the Hart Foundation and Demolition. Like,
or the Bulldogs or somebody.
yes,
It's always something.
exactly. Yes.
I think another thing I was going to ask you, because we kind of talked just a little bit about this off air. I think it's a good tool, and now we're back kind of focusing this more on the indie stuff, is you've got this young guy that you're wanting to work with or whatever. You want to groom, develop him, bring him along. Hey, put him with a guy who's a veteran and put him in a tag team, and it kind of like explain like how it can help them grow, just as far as develop as in the ring, their character, everything.
Yeah, so the thing, especially as a coach, that I've learned is you and I, as a younger talent, I could sit down and I can tell you for days, what about this? You can try this, do this, put this here. You got this move, but it works better in the shine than it does in the heat or in the comeback or as a false finish or whatever. But getting to be in the ring so you can feel that dynamic. So I'm on the apron and I can say, hey, sell with your face up here or reach this way. There's just such a different dynamic of being actually in the ring and experiencing it in front of people versus you having your match, you coming to the back, I break down pro wrestling. I'm a big believer, and maybe this is why I'm the worst coach ever. When the beginning of pro wrestling was at the carnivals and at the circuses and all that stuff, and pro wrestling was never intended to be viewed and then rewatched and then studied and then improved upon in that manner, right? Pro wrestling was always a live event, but then TV became a thing, and it's cheap TV, but it's great TV. So then it became what it is now, where we can rewatch and study. And there's a lot you can learn from rewatching your matches, but it's sometimes hard for guys to be able to combine both the TV aspect of it and the live events aspect of it, right? Because, like, perfect example, when I broke in with Wildside back in 2000, Barron's was always real big about work the hard cam, work the hard cam.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that was instilled in my brain. Like you always have to find your hard cam and work it. But, and I don't even know if you ever made it up to Cornelia for Wildside, but the way the building was set up, there was the only person on the hard cam side was the guy working the hard cam. So you have the people making the noise, the instant reaction that you're working for, so the crowd, makes any sound during your match, but I'm getting drilled in the back of my head. No, do it towards the hard cam. And so it took a lot of time for me to figure out, like, oh, well, I can do this towards the hard cam, but I can also find the people, because I need the people to come with me, so the hard cam picks up that people care about me one way or another, heel, babyface, whatever. So putting a young guy with a veteran, I almost said old guy, but then I realized I was burying myself. Putting a younger guy with a veteran, I think, is such a great tool to teach, because you have so many opportunities to teach on the job instead of breaking down something that's already happened or something that's about to happen. Like, oh, don't do that here. Just trust me, you'll feel it. Uh, but that in ring moment where you can talk to somebody and then you can. There's been quite a few times where I've seen it where like I'll talk to somebody about something and then they get out in the ring and you can see the light bulb go off and it's like, oh, this all makes sense. Which is ironic because it's pro wrestling. None of it makes sense, but I digress.
But when you're, like I said, I think when you're there, there's a funny. I mean, obviously you've seen the
Yes.
clip of Cena's
Yes.
out in the ring going, wait,
Yes.
wait, but like that's
Yes.
what you're talking about. It's like, wait a minute, like slow down, slow down,
Yes.
and then when they hear it, they're like, I think that's when they go, now is what I'm supposed to. They're finally
Well,
there, kind of
and
thing.
here's a perfect example. It's not tag team wrestling, but it's uh this was 2010, I think, when Rampage was really hot. And we did a show at the Warner Robins Civic Center. It was a ladder match. And one of my favorite spots to do in a ladder match is I get to the top of the ladder and I have somebody give me a hurricane run off the top of the ladder. Which says a lot about my mentality. That's one of my favorite. No, that's not intelligent at all. That's what dumb people do. But uh, and so we're going through the match, and Chip was in it. Chip Day was in the match, and I was like, "Hey, I got the spot. It always works. Give me a Rana. They'll lose their mind." You know. He's like, "Okay, cool." So we blah 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 blah. We get up to the ladder, and we get to the tippy top of this tall ladder, and he's like, "I am not comfortable. Can we just do a flatliner?" And I was like, "No, that's gonna look like crap and probably hurt more." I was like, "No, give me the Rana." And so like we're going back and forth up on the ladder, and I was like, give me the Rana now. Stop thinking, just go." And so he gives me the Rana. We hit. Crowd loses their mind. I hit. I just remember taking the bump and looking over at him and go, "And that's why we do it this way." And he was like, "Oh, I see." Like, all
Like,
right.
ding.
Yes.
Yeah. That kind of leads me because we talked about the coaching thing, and you're teaching people. Is there something somebody taught you like that, where that light bulb like triggered off?
See, honestly, there's a lot of there's a lot of moments where it was I especially early on I was very dead set in my way. I was I started training at 13. I had my first match at 15, and by 16 I knew everything.
But that's life. That's life
Yeah,
in general.
yes,
But yeah,
yes, absolutely. So I was kind of already set in my ways, and one of the first people to really like, and it was in ring, and I'll forever cherish this moment even more so. Um, when I first started wrestling in Georgia, my third match here, and keep in mind, I mean, I'm probably 120 pounds, 90 of it was hair. Literally the antithesis of what I am now. But I'm under a hood because a guy no-showed, and so I had already worked on the show once, but they needed a mask guy, so I got a hood on and I pulled my long hair through the face of the mask like a big mustache, and I was El Chico Loco, and I was working with Jimmy Rave, who you know combined, I don't think either of us had our driver's license yet. Uh, like, um, and I had laid out this spot because I was a luchador. And I was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. It has to be this way because I'm a luchador, and that's what luchadors do. And he was like, hey, man, this is our canvas. You can do it this way because it's what you do. And that was just one of those like, oh my God, he's right. Pro wrestling doesn't have set rules. There's there's a way to be trained and there's a way to be taught. And if you know your fundamentals, knowing your fundamentals is key. But once you've mastered those, then you can start painting with your own paintbrushes. And that's one thing that I will, and especially because it was from Jimmy. And for those of you that don't know, like, Jimmy was my best friend. You know, like he was the best man at my wedding. I mean, I don't know why he didn't stop it. You know, so maybe he wasn't the greatest.
He was
No,
supportive
but
at the moment.
yeah, but I mean, you know, I will. Jimmy was my best friend. He was the guy that he opened up so many doors for me.
Can I pause there? I want to pause there for something because I want to take that moment.
Patreon, no,
No. I want to like, because Jimmy. Let's give him his flowers here for a second, because I mean, you brought him up. He's your best friend, but a lot of people, specifically from the area that we're in, Jimmy's a legend here. Everything he did. He went on Ring of Honor. This is where I wanted to ask you, because you hear this all the time. When Jimmy was at his peak of Ring of Honor, was there a better heel in not
no.
Ring of Honor wrestling at the time?
No. And keep in mind, during it all ties in. During some of that run, I was his tag team partner. I was his footstool. And that's one of those spots that he fought to get for. Like again, like he did not have to do it. But so like I've been in the ring to feel that magic, to be a part of that heat, to stand in the ring and have people throwing toilet paper at us, not just because it's part of the show, because they really, truly hated Jimmy. It was pure magic. It was pure magic. I mean, he was, and it's funny just because, again, Jimmy was very much like Marv, where you loved him or you hated him. So there was a lot of people that Jimmy was also the biggest heel in a lot of people's lives outside of the ring. But yeah, I mean, he was, I like I said, I mean, I could spend the whole show just talking about all the lessons I learned solely from Jimmy. He was just so good at being Jimmy Rave. One of the biggest, I don't know, regrets, just one thing I wish is he was around to see what wrestling was today. I mean, his brain, he would be a coach anywhere. I mean, he was so invaluable. And I mean, the ongoing, one of our biggest jokes was a lot of Jimmy's stuff was stuff I came up with as far as gimmick wise, execution and his natural heat. That's, nobody can pitch that, but just like little things he would do sometimes were stuff that him and I would just talk about in the car. Like, for example, like he was one of the first guys that, like on the Georgia Indy scene that was doing a spear. And so I was like, oh, well, the reason you do the spear is because you trained in Ghana. Like you saw people throwing spears and you decided to use yourself as a spear. Or like I was the one that, first kind of pitched like, hey, what if you start doing the Rave Clash? And then when he lost the Rave Clash, when AJ came back to Ring of Honor, they did the match. He lost the Clash. He was like, I need a new finish. And this is '07. And I was like, oh, do the pedigree. And he was like, what? I was like, dude, there's nobody that Smarks hate more than Triple H right now. Do that man's finish as your finish. And he was like, yeah. So greetings from Ghana. That was one of those things. And one of our inside jokes was always when his book comes out, that's when the revelation was going to be that it was all my idea. Except I was probably going to be the one that wrote his book anyway, so I wouldn't expose it anyways.
I want to ask you this though, because something I asked is, can people still today get that heat?
Yes.
And two, because I always say the answer is yes. But I want you to say that. Two, why are people either afraid of it or Is it just everybody wants to be the cool? Was it the NWO? I mean, I hate to blame them on it, but was that the death of a lot of the true heels that everybody's like, I want to be that cool heel, not the guy that they all hate?
I don't think it was all the death. I will, and you can ask any of the young talent that I work with. Sal Rinauro is a pro wrestler. My least favorite word is but, especially as a heel. I hate Sal Rinauro, but God, he's funny. But man, he's cool. But that guy can go. I guess it's an old school mentality, but my thought process has always been, I want the phrase to be, I hate Sal Rinauro, period. I don't want buts. And I do think it's a combination of just the way independent wrestlers are successful nowadays. It's not the pay window from the promoter, it's selling merchandise. It's hard to sell merchandise and be hated. So like I especially on an indie level, I 100% get like, hey man, if they want to kill me, they're not going to spend, $30 on a t-shirt. Yeah, you're right, but that's the sacrifices you got to make sometimes. If you ever notice when I'm a heel anywhere, I'm never outselling merchandise because I don't believe it. I don't believe in it. And I think it's extremely possible. I mean, finding a group of people to hate one person is pretty simple nowadays, right? As long as you got somebody that can back them and go, hey, don't be afraid to push the line. Here's the line. You can cross it. You don't. Maybe don't go all the way over there with it, but you've got to perpetuate what you are in the ring in real life. And with instant access to everybody nowadays, it's a commitment that the talent has to make. And if you're willing to do that, I think the sky could be the limit. I definitely think, like I said, like personally for me, I've always found it easier to be a heel because I just find it easier to make people hate me than love me. And I just have more fun as a heel. But I think, like you said, you get the right person, you can 100% be the most hated man in the world, and it will carry over everywhere.
I think the struggle now in wrestling, though, today is you have people that are committed to it. Let's go with arguably. We're going to go with arguably here. A guy like MJF, who goes out of his way to even in, meet and greets. He's a total ass. I mean, he's just, he's going out of his way. And there still just comes a period where the fans are just like, we love it. Like they're cheering. So it's like, I always sit there and say, like, you can't even insult them. That's not enough. Like, you have to do vile actions to make them hate you.
Yes, it's part of the pro wrestling shtick, right? As a heel, like, there's those fans that, like, want to be insulted because that's part of the pro wrestling experience, right? So it's an ever-evolving art of how can I do something where I can trigger people where they genuinely just want to see me get punched in the mouth, and they'll pay good money to see me get punched in the mouth. And if I had the answer, I would just be doing it. And
yeah. Well, I have a great way, by the way. I have a great way to trigger wrestlers. You know how we do that these days?
Please share with the Patreon.
Yeah, no. Make a list.
Oh God. Yes.
So obviously in Georgia indie wrestling, if you're a Georgia indie person at all, whether you're a fan, a wrestler, whatever, you've had to have lived under a rock because apparently that's a thing. This whole thing is about lists. We had a conversation and I wanted to ask you about this and saying, hey, maybe instead of doing lists, by the way, we're going to do one right after we do this. Yes, instead of doing a list, because look, we used to do a thing about promotions in Georgia, and we said it was a tier. Let's do a tier system versus like who's the top 5 promotions, whatever. Like, hey, what promotions are AAA? What are AA, single A, rookie ball, even church league softball sometimes. But wrestlers, maybe, is that a better ranking system for wrestlers, even not just promotions?
Well, I'm as we discussed, but yes, I think it is because wrestling is so subjective that there's never. It's very hard to just say this guy's the best wrestler. And I mean, because like I can ask you right now, who's the best wrestler you've ever seen?
Oh, it's always a difference. Who's the best
Yeah,
wrestler I've ever, or who's my favorite wrestler of all? Those are, but so the argument semantics. But look, my favorite wrestler of all times is Dusty Rhodes.
yeah, and then now I can tell you 86 reasons why you're wrong, but you're not. It's your opinion, right? And
Correct.
that's like, oh well, Austin sold more tickets, so how can Austin, how can Dusty be better than Austin? Well, Flair had more meek robes, or Flair had more world titles, or Hogan sold more tickets, or Andre wrestled on more continent, right? And now it's like, well, what's so I've never as a child I loved when the first PWI 500 came out. I was so like just mind blown by this thing. There's 500 wrestlers. I thought there was only, the 70 on Vince's TV and the 50 on the Crockett TV. Like, who's this? I got to find him. Like, Beef Stew, Lou Marconi? I need to find out more about this individual, And, like, but I'm a pro wrestling nerd, so, like, Lord forbid. But even then, like, you would see where, like, because the first PWI 500 was in 91. Hogan was the number one wrestler in the world for the grading period. And I remember the next month there were, printed, how could you put Hulk Hogan number one? He's awful, blah, 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 right? Lists will never, pro wrestling is such a weird art where it's so subjective that making a list of who's the best is just you saying whatever you want, and you can find words to back it up somehow, but you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. Whatever, like
We're both sports junkies, and we can't even agree on who's like the best running back. And they're like, there's
oh yeah,
numbers that'll tell you, yeah, there's numbers. I can make my numbers say whatever I want them to tell you. My Barry Sanders is the greatest running back of all time.
Yes, exactly. And I could say, I don't agree with it, but I could say Emmitt Smith. There's more yards. How can you be the best when you don't have the most, right? We just had this conversation a couple weeks ago about the greatest basketball player of all time. And I'll go to my grave saying Magic Johnson's the greatest basketball player that ever lived. And I get evil looks from everybody. It's like, oh, Michael Jordan's a thing and LeBron James is a thing. I'm like, yeah, but, without Magic, the league wouldn't have survived. Well, without Bird, wouldn't Magic have, like, it's so, like, and these are those are guys with hard stats, right? Magic has 3 MVPs. He has 5 rings. Like, these are things that he accomplished in his career where, like, pro wrestling is just so blown out, and there's no season. So, like, well, I think Daniel Bryan's better than Ric Flair. Well, Ric Flair's got 16 world titles and Bryan has 5. Well, I think he's a better technical wrestler. Well, can't promo like Ric Flair. So did he sell more tickets than Ric Flair? It's so, yeah, the list system is such
it's a weird, we've had this part of this conversation, and this is the part like I really wanted to drive home when people get in these arguments. Wrestling's in that awkward, it's in the middle of sports, middle of entertainment. Like, we could sit here and argue who's the greatest actor of all time.
Yeah.
By what metric? By what metric, right?
Yeah, no, I like Tom Hanks more than Denzel, or whatever it may be.
It's like Cruz or Hanks. Who's the better star?
Yeah. It's all silliness, right? And it's the lists, and I think, and I just saw this newest list, where I think I was number 6 in the state. And I don't even know what the time period is. Maybe the first half.
First half of 25, yeah.
Okay, so I was the 6th best wrestler in the state. I don't feel like that. B, being 6th best wrestler in the state has made me zero amount of dollars. Not one person has contacted me and like, hey, heard you were sixth in Georgia. I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars to come wrestle. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So like people getting caught up, oh, well, he should be one. He should be two. He should be. I can't believe he didn't crack the 25. Make your
And
own
listen,
list.
I want to throw a disclaimer in here, and for all the right reasons. Look, I appreciate a list as much as anybody. If the intent's that, like, I was responding to people going like they're made to create conversation.
Yes.
They're made to create a buzz. And that's just kind of like, if you could take that for what it is. And by the way, with total respect for the people who made the list, I pretty much can tell you, I know every single 6 or 7 members or whatever it was that helped put that list together. And I'm like, totally respect most of their opinions across the board. I mean, but I mean, I'm guessing. But it's like, it's okay.
Yes.
Like I tell people all the time, we're going to do a list here in a second. Every week I go, full disclaimer, it's my opinion or it's my guest host's opinion. Look, it's not like we're saying nobody's going to like, WWE's not calling tomorrow and saying, hey, we heard you made the Tapped Outs Power 5, so we want to offer you a contract.
Here's the deal.
A conversation. Yes. Yeah. We're
Absolutely.
just like, hey.
Like, I appreciate, especially like a guy like Bryce Cannon that I know personally, and I know how hard he's worked to come back. And so, like, to see a list where he gets credit, or maybe, it helps get him some buzz, that's a beautiful thing. Like, it's not made to diminish what other guys are doing. Again, it's just an opinion, but you can't. Yeah. Getting hung up on stuff like that blows me away.
Here's a real peek behind the curtain, because we're doing Unreal content across the board on a lot of stuff. I told somebody one week, you do.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I like to call it the Barry Horowitz special, but same difference. Yeah, save your bullets. Yes. Get some hacks. No, and sometimes, that will take guys, take a step back and really look at, take a deep look into yourself. Like, because I'm of the mentality that every time I step into a room, I'm the best wrestler in the room. Is that true? No. There's a lot of times like I've been fortunate enough to walk in. We'll just take the Ring of Honor locker room in '05, for example, right? I would walk into the locker room and there's CM Punk and there's Samoa Joe and there's Christopher Daniels and there's AJ Styles and there's Jamie Noble and there's Austin Aries and there's Roderick Strong and there's, Abyss and there's Jack Evans and then there's me. and I would have the mentality that I was better than all of them. Spoiler alert, I probably wasn't. But I had to have that mentality that I was the best and I belonged, or it would ooze from the moment I walked to the ring. Oh, this guy doesn't belong, right? So, but I also had the perception of being able to step back and go, oh yeah, like especially there were some nights where I would watch Brian perform and I would genuinely just be like, I've never seen anybody better bell to bell than this man. And this is coming from a guy that, Shawn Michaels is my all-time. Shawn Michaels or Randy Savage. It depends literally what pair of socks I'm wearing. But then I've watched Brian make the most out of nothing. Matches that should have been just unwatchable or magic. And like, oh, this guy might be the best I've ever been in the ring with. He's such a next level, like, goodness gracious alive. But even with that in the back of my mind, when I was putting matches together with him, I wasn't his peer. I was better than him. Right? So it's a matter of having perception too. So when you take that step back and go, am I a AAA player? Am I a AA player? Am I a single A player? Take account everywhere you are and everybody you're with. And are you stepping up to play with the big boys, or some of these guys stepping down to play with you? Or is there anybody in any locker room that you can look at and go, oh no, we're on the same level? Because as a person, as Sal Rinauro, the person, there's a lot of times I've been in the ring with guys where I'm like, oh wow, this dude's special. Like, I probably shouldn't be in the ring with him. He is, first time I wrestled Jamie Noble, I was just like, we were just chain wrestling. And I was in holds. I was putting him in holds that I wasn't putting him in. Like, how did I get here? Oh my God, this guy's incredible, right? But those are also things you get to, take opportunities to learn from. Because, as I said, I started training at 13, had my first match at 15. When I had that first match, I would have told you I'm a AAA player. I'm able to look back now and go, no, I was probably a wee backyard,
Yeah. And, I always talk about self-awareness and kind of being able to, and I get it. It's, you want to be the best, and you always should be I'm going to be the best. I'm always going to get better. But I think there does a fine line. That's where, let's stop worrying about I'm better than that guy or this guy, because if you sat there, if I would have loved to have seen an argument between Bret Hart and Dusty Rhodes, who was a better pro wrestler.
Yeah.
And my argument to them is, look, unfortunately, I get it. This is probably not a popular opinion. Dusty sold more tickets than Bret, in my opinion.
Oh, I'm not a Bret Hart guy, so
yeah, so you're willing to kick. But everybody's going to go, but Bret's 10 times the wrestler in the ring.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I'll take Sapphire over Bret Hart.
But anyway, but look, it's about getting better. And one of the things we like to do here on a monthly basis is we have something, and I've kind of changed it up now that I got the guest host coming in, and that is the weekly categories. And this one, of course, this week is the hot hand. And Sal, man, I'm going to let you take it over. And literally what it is, if this is not the best five of anything, it's literally like right now in Georgia Indie Wrestling, who's got the hot hand, who's got all the momentum, who's got, full steam ahead.
Well, I mean, like we said, this will not be a list. This will just be a grouping of, but I'd be remiss if I didn't start this without one FW. I mean, without starting by, they just sold out Center Stage. But that's the headline, right? They sold out Center Stage. But I consider myself pretty tuned into the Georgia indie scene, and I see their posters. They're running constantly, and it's such a good meld of like young talent that's getting their first opportunity, and then like you never know who's going to show up, right? Like We've seen, from, Billy Gunn and, Glacier's always hanging out. And they had Darby Allin show up and MJF, and, Jay Lethal and Satnam. And, on top of just their regular guys. Like, it's very, very hard to ignore the work they're doing as consistently as they're doing it. It wasn't just a one-off center stage show, right? That was just a culmination of the hard work that's been put in. So, I mean, to start with Georgia Indie Wrestling right now and not say 1FW, like, that's crazy to me. That would be, that'd be almost blasphemous at this point.
No, yeah, they look extremely. They've got a ton of momentum, and it was months in the build and stories and ready. And like I said, and you're right. It's a lot of one of the things I was, and I promise I'm going to get off this train, is I said one of the cool things I appreciated they did, and you would probably as well. They could have main evented that show with QT and the Gun Club, and Brody King showed up for an injured, Austin, but against the frat house. But no, they put two guys that are their guys, homegrown guys, fighting over their title in a cage, and that was your main event, because those two guys, super young, both of them, main evented center stage, for the title. Like,
and that's how you build your talent, right? And that's how because those are the guys that are going to be there in McDonough and in Thomaston and in wherever else they're running. So, like, that's just smart business. I've had this conversation with the guy that books WrestleMerica a lot, because he's always asking, and he's going to be so mad at me because I'm probably not going to put him on this list. But we always have the conversation of, well, what can we do to pop the crowd in Forsyth, Georgia? Like, is there a name out there that's, because I've seen their numbers, and they average about 200 sold tickets every show. Whether the main event is Luka Daniels and Michael Stevens, or Fry Daddy and KJ, or whomever it is, it's right around 200 every show. And we've discussed, like, well, is there anybody out there that can pop the house that's worth it too, right? Because that's the thing you got to take into account. Right. The easy answer is like, yeah, John Cena. Just go
see what that pays like. Yeah.
But you say his number's $10,000, which I don't think John Cena is available for indie dates, but just work with me here. If they're $10 a ticket and you got to pay John Cena $10,000, you're going to have to sell 100,000 tickets just to pay John Cena, right, on top of the rest of your crew. So it's a matter of juggling those parts to make it work, right?
Can I ask you an unpopular indie question in Georgia?
Absolutely.
Somebody said to me, and you probably know who said this, it's really tough for wrestlers to be the draw.
Yes.
It's the story that the wrestler's pulling off that's the draw.
And that's one thing I try to really hammer home to the younger guys, is that, especially in this day and age where anytime you want to see anything, it's right here. I don't have to leave my house. I can watch it right here. What are you doing today? Oh, well, I'm going to watch Wrestle Kingdom on my phone and WrestleMania on my TV. And I can walk into my son's room and he's streaming Bound for Glory. And, AEW's on in the day. Like, it's all right here. People aren't going to leave their house just to see wrestlers do wrestling moves.
No.
It's building that investment. It's building that brand. It's building that trust with the audience that they're going to see something that they feel like they spent their money on, and it's worth it. I couldn't agree with that statement more, and especially as that's one thing I drive home when I'm coaching, is I want to see you do the cool stuff. I want to see all the cool stuff, but give me a reason to care about the person doing the cool stuff. And my favorite example, and I'll always tell this story. In 1994, my next door neighbor, he was my age. We were both hardcore wrestling fans. When Worlds Collide was on pay per view, and he had the black box, so we could just watch. I watched every pay per view at his house, and it cost me two liters of Dr. Pepper, which at the time were 99 cents a piece. So I was paying $2 to watch every pay per view. I think it was a sound investment. But when Worlds Collide came, when Worlds Collide's coming, we're going to watch it. But we're not familiar with all the acts. And I'll never forget, that's the first time I was introduced to Rey Mysterio Jr. And I was like, what in the hell was that? Oh my God. This guy blew my mind. And so when I got to school on Monday and we were talking to our other friends who kind of liked wrestling, but it's also 94, so nobody really cared. But I'm talking about this guy that did this thing. Could not remember his name. Had no clue who he was. He just did cool stuff. Right? And that's who he was for years to me. Was just this guy that did cool stuff where when I saw him, I'd go, ooh, and then I forgot his name. So if his name was on a poster, I wouldn't have recognized it, so I wouldn't have spent my money to see it. Don't be that guy, right? And then, and then obviously I learned, like, oh no, this is Rey Mysterio. It worked out pretty okay for him, I think.
He got the storytelling piece down. He got it. Yeah.
I think he figured it out just a little bit.
Really?
And that was me, super hardcore wrestling fan that bought not just the aftermags, but like the other knockoff, the inside wrestlings and the, whatever whatever I could get my hands on.
All right, so get back to your list. We got four more. You got four more. Like, who's got the hot hand? So
okay, yeah.
I'm gonna steer you back on the ship.
Sorry, but yeah. So 1FW, Southern Hunter, especially with Rumblejack coming up, which I mean, I don't even. I think this is like the 6th or 7th one, but like the Rumblejack, I don't think there's ever been a miss. Every time there's a Rumblejack, the next day I hear people like, oh. My favorite comment is, I can't believe I didn't go. So like, but Southern Honor, if you're looking, not only do they currently have a hot hand, I really like a lot that they're doing, but there's just so much aura about the Rumblejack every year. Like now, like it's Rumblejack time, right?
I caught a lot of heat for making this comment. God knows how, it's a couple months ago, and I'm like, Rumblejack's my favorite Georgia event every year.
Yeah.
Like as far as a specific, you don't want to call it a gimmicky show, but it's like the Rumble, right? Like the Royal Rumble. Like, it's the one. Like Royal Rumble's my favorite pay-per-view for your PLE. From me, it's better than WrestleMania in my opinion. But this is kind of like the same in Georgia for me.
Yes, because there's so much anticipation, right? And I mean, and just if you look at Southern Honor versus everywhere else over the last, whatever. 5-6 years, it's been the most consistently good. Has everything been a hit? No, that's impossible. But if you're looking for consistency, top to bottom, year after year after year, you can't not say Southern Honor. It's impossible to say. One that I'll add that will surprise a lot of people that know me personally is Viral Pro Wrestling. I've done a couple of their shows before, but they've built such an incredible and loyal fan base over there in Augusta that, and I've had to debate people, because I was talking to a buddy who will remain nameless and about their last show, because I think they did like 650. And he was like, "Oh, that's because they had Cedric Alexander and Sean Legacy." And I was like, "Andy, keep in mind, I love both of them. I've known Cedric since he was basically a baby."
I thought that was the next show. I think that's the next show.
It might be okay. I thought it was either way.
But go ahead. Yes, I got you.
But my whole point was just like people in Augusta don't care about Cedric Alexander. It's not like they got this huge TV star to come in. Cedric wasn't on TV for the last 4 years. Like, Cedric's best run was during COVID when nobody was watching anything. Like, who cares, right? No, that's not, that might have sold some tickets. That did not sell a lot of tickets.
No.
They've got a great fan base. They've got a rabid fan base that continually shows up for their product. And I think that's awesome, right? Especially in that Augusta area where there's been, 6 or 7 attempts at different people trying to take over that one little area. Let's see, that's 3. One company I haven't worked for yet, but like every time they have a show, I don't know if it's just the way my algorithm is, but it gets a lot of buzz, is Coastal. I hear a lot of buzz out of Coastal. I mean, to the point where I've talked to a couple people and offered my services. And if you're paying attention, if you're out there watching, still doing so. So
yeah, listen, I think they completely get overlooked. And I always tell people, like, I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of it from time to time. I got a message the last show they ran, literally had to turn people away.
Yeah.
Like they were like, hey, we're full. Like, like can't do anymore. That's a good problem to have, by the way. I mean, if you're having to tell people
100%.
like, we can't let any more people in. But yeah, Coastal's on, they're doing uniquely great storytelling on top of, it's just wrestling, down there. It's really cool. I've tried to keep up with it as much as possible.
Yeah, no, there's a few of the guys I know that work there pretty regularly that I just kind of talk to them. And the one feedback that's kind of been across the board is those fans are wild. Those fans, they're starving for wrestling. So, we're giving them a show that's feeding that hunger, and they're there for it every time. It's like, that's awesome. So, I would definitely throw them on like a hot hand right now. Coastal would be in there. And then I think last, and there's a lot, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get, tons of heat for not mentioning other ones. Sorry, guys. I'll say one company that I've really got my eye on. I like some of the stuff they're doing is Deep South. Though I just did one of their shows a couple weeks ago at the brewery, and man, it was just the way that it was set up, and especially with it not being hardcore wrestling fans for the most part, it was just people there to have a good time. And I was match 5 of a 6-match card, and watching people that weren't wrestling fans slowly just kind of like, oh, what's this? And then watching that pile up. By the time I got out there, it was probably tripled what there was at the beginning of the show. Just out of people stopping because like, oh, look at this. It's pro wrestling. They've got a fun little vibe there. And I mean, with Georgia, there's a lot of familiar places or a lot of familiar faces in all the same places. But even with that, there was a good diversity of people that you don't necessarily see everywhere. So that's going to be my top 5. No specific order. If you didn't make the list, get your hands hotter. Go get some gloves.
Listen, send all your hate mail to tappedoutpod@gmail.com, as I always like to say. Yes. We'll slide it right into the trash pile. It's okay. We'll scoop it over there. Just put the header that you're taking shots at Sal Rinauro.
Yeah, Sal, piece of garbage. That's fine.
Yeah. Listen, I appreciate you coming on, but before we get out of here, I want to remind everybody once again, make sure you're checking us out, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Remember, you get the show early, you get the show notes, the digital collectibles, all the above. And remember, we also tell you, you're sending your emails in, your questions that come in every week, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. But if you're a Patreon member, as long as you're not asking me things about Batista, and I know you know what we're talking about here, the question from our Patreon members always make the episode. We always make sure we get them in. So absolutely best value we think out there, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. But before we get out of here, Sal, tell them kind of like you got a busy weekend coming up. Where are you going to be, and how do they find you, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, actually, before I get there, I'm just going to tell you a quick Batista story, just because if you rode with us this long, you might enjoy this story. So, one of the first ever extra spots I did for WWE was in South Carolina in '02, right? This is building up to King of the Ring of '02. So, this is back when, like, they were very big on you shake every hand you see. So, like, I think I'm 18 at the time, going on 19, whatever. There was not an unshook hand in my line of sight all night. I mean, every single hand that was possible, I shook it. Uh, at the end of the night, this big jacked OVW guy kind of stops me in the locker room and he goes, "Hey, if you ever think you're going to have a chance here, maybe you shouldn't be an a-hole and shake everybody's hand." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I shook, like, "I'm so sorry if I didn't shake your hand. I swear, like, I just didn't see you. I'm so sorry." And he was like, "No, no, just remember, like, you're a guest in my house. I'm not a guest in your house. You need to shake hands." And this big jacked musclehead walked away, and I looked over at my buddy and I go, "Who cares? That guy's not going to be anybody anyways." It was Batista.
Who'd he ever beat, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I vividly remember watching WrestleMania 21 as he beats Hunter in the main. I was like, maybe I was wrong on that one.
Missed that one. Missed that one just a little bit.
But what I didn't miss was this weekend, and that's what we call a segue, buddy. Friday night, we touched on it, but this Friday, Southern Honor, the Rumble Jack, your decision maker, will be live and in living color, and I might just decide to make myself an entrance in the Rumble Jack himself. You will have to show up to find out. And then Saturday, I'll be in Forsyth, Georgia. Again, I'm in a battle royal spirit. So the Greater Glory Battle Royal, I might just have to go 2 for 2 in battle royals this weekend. I might have to get my Andre the Giant on and become the greatest battle royal wrestler that ever lived. You'll have to show up to find out.
And when we tell you to show up, we always tell you the same thing. The best way to support indie wrestling, it's not just, look, you can listen to us. We can talk for an hour and a half at a time, hours, it doesn't matter. But the best way to support it is to go out, buy a ticket,
yep.
And as our buddy says, maybe, just maybe, we'll see you at the matches.